everybody, and welcome to the Risk Matrix, where you're going to listen today to James Junkin. I'm Dr. Martin, and I'm up in New England. Also here with us today is Shauna Frazier of Frazier Engineering, and we're going to get to that in a moment after James gives a little read, and then we'll launch into the show.
So this episode of the Risk Matrix, powered by Veriforce, is sponsored by Columbia Southern University. Columbia Southern was founded in 1993 as an alternative to traditional university experience, and it's really tailored for busy working adults. CSU offers 100% online associates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, as well as certificate programs in fields such as occupational safety and health and more. Dr. Martin is a lead professor at Columbia Southern. I am in the doctorate program and hold a master's degree from Columbia Southern. And our guest today, Shauna Frazier, is not only a graduate, she is also Columbia Southern University's 2021 Safety Professional of the Year. To learn more about Columbia Southern and how Veriforce Network partners can earn up to a 10% discount off already affordable tuition, please visit veriforcenetwork.com/offers/Columbia-Southern-University. Welcome, Shauna.
Welcome, Shauna. So like I said,
so great to be here. Thank you.
That's quite an introduction. Welcome, Shauna Frazier from Frazier Engineering. She is the Vice President of Safety and co-owner of Frazier Engineering. Frazier Engineering has been located in the Boston area for some time, family-owned business, long-standing work in the area, also doing national work. Shauna is speaking at the Oil and Gas Conference coming up. She spoke at many conferences, has been in a leadership position for ASSP, master's degree in safety, bachelor's degree in safety, and I am a proud colleague of Shauna. Welcome, Shauna.
Thank you. That was too kind.
Well, listen, Shauna, if I could have a dream show, this is it, because you and James are my heroes. And today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, and James has got some opinions on, as he does everything. We are going to talk about owner responsibility and safety, and we think you're the perfect person to ask about this because you have a great story about how you were handed the quote-unquote keys to safety in your business, and also how you navigate being an owner, right? And actively caring for people, being all in for safety, and all of those topics. So welcome again. And James, I'm going to let you lead off with a question for Shauna.
So Shauna, welcome. I'm really looking forward to your presentation to the OSHA Oil and Gas Conference in November, and this episode will air in November, probably right before you and I get up to speak. So this episode normally plays on Tuesday. So about the time you're presenting at the OSHA Oil and Gas Conference, our national listeners and our listeners around the world will be able to get an introduction to you and to some of the topics that you're going to be talking about. But you and I share a couple things in common, and it's uncommon. And that's the fact we both own organizations in which not only do we have to worry about safety, we have to worry about profit. We have to worry about cash flow. We have to worry about all the things that keep the lifeblood of the business going. You know, it's not too long ago, Shauna, that I remember standing by the mailbox hoping a check would come and show up so I could make payroll on Monday. So how do you balance all of these different competing interests for your time? How do you balance safety with the need to make a profit and the need to turn a profit in your organization?
So we care about our people. And I say this every time in my new hire orientation. We're in construction. Our name is a little deceiving because it's Frazier Engineering. So a lot of times people hear that and they're like, "Oh, you're engineers." We're like, "No, we're actual mechanical." And I can tell you how the name came about later. But I tell that to our new hires, like, we are a manpower driven business. We're not making software programs. We're not sitting at a desk. We need people to produce our product. And if we don't care about our people through safety, we're not going to have productive job sites. We're going to have injured people. We're going to have lack of morale. And ultimately, we won't have a successful project, which in turn would make a profit. And any accident, even if we're doing great all year round and hitting profits on our margins on our projects, one injury, one accident can take everything away. And so it's really important that we care about our people and make sure that they're safe, make sure that they know that they have a voice to come to the owners directly and say, hey, I've got a problem. And I always enforce back with them that I will have your back. And I have plentiful examples of my foremen who have called me and said, I'm being asked to do something that I don't feel is safe. Can you come check it out? And I'm right there to go head to head, even with a GC, and we're just a small mechanical subcontractor.
So I know Shauna personally, you know, to say this, and I've met her sister CJ, who is the CEO of Fraser Engineering, and you know, one of the things that really strikes me, Shauna, is this from you is not lip service, okay? I know that you're a family company before profit and all those other things. I mean, that's important. Shauna, James will kind of take me to task on this. You have to make a profit, or you don't have your people. You have to have your people. You don't make profit. But when you say you care, okay, I've seen this in action, right? Any type of you know, supervisory problem or need to go to site, stop the job. I've actually talked to you on the way to jobs, and you've asked questions as a colleague. And so how did you get there, right? From being, and you weren't always the safety person, right?
No.
How did you get to, because this is really important. You were an owner before you were the safety person, right? And so what is the journey that your company went through when you actually had a safety person in an ownership role?
Whew. So yeah, going back, like,
Question, but it's important to know that before you were safety, before Fraser Engineering really had a robust safety program, you were an owner, and you were doing other things in the company.
I was. And you know, I don't know if I would necessarily classify myself as an owner way back then,
Yeah.
because I was still young. I was green. I didn't understand what it meant to be an owner and how much liability and risk is there. Um, you know, I was daddy's little girl at one point, and that's kind of how I started in the field of safety. Is that the person who was kind of overseeing our safety wasn't just safety. He was doing multiple other things, scheduling, HR, and maybe some safety thrown in there. When he left the company, it was that position was kind of handed over to me, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you do safety?" And I didn't know anything. I had no idea what to do, and I was just advised to go out onto the job sites, make sure the guys are wearing their hard hats and their safety glasses. I was like, okay, that didn't get me anywhere. And you know, it was a long, hard road of uphill and downhills, and eventually, you know, I got through some training, OSHA Training Institute, and just kept stepping stepping up different blocks and getting there. And that's when I went to Columbia Southern University in 2016. When I started there, all my experience that I had built up really hit home with me when I started doing the studying. And I was like, all right, I do actually have this. But it also put into perspective of a lot of what it is running a business, and how, you know, return on investment on safety is crucial to keeping a business afloat. And that's when I started to really change things around and make safety inclusive to everybody in the company, not just the men out in the field or the men and women out in the field, but to include estimating and even accounting in our safety program, because they need to understand too the power that safety has to keep the people safe. And that's one thing I do with our toolbox talks, which is different from a lot of companies. I know of a company who's a GC, and they send out just a weekly safety brief to their foreman or their supers, and the super just hands it off. Guys sign it, and I'll send it back in, and they're just checking a box, but it's not effective. I'm like, what are the guys getting from that? Are they actually reading it, or are they just signing it and sending it back? So what we do is conference calls, and I do 3 of them every Wednesday, and I make sure that all of our employees are on that call, from accounting to management to estimating to apprentice. Everybody comes in on that.
CJ, and sometimes your mom.
Yes. And if I'm not available to, say I'm traveling, I'm doing a conference, or I'm away on vacation, which doesn't happen often, we have somebody fill in for me. So it's not, we don't miss a week just because, oh, Shauna's away, we're just going to skip this week. There's another leadership member that steps up and says, I'll take it on this week.
Well, I really like that approach, and that really goes to I don't want to get on this too much, Dr. Martin, about this debate about, is there such thing as a safety culture, right? We had that in a previous session and several sessions, right? But what you're illustrating is the organizational culture in which safety touches every aspect of that culture, which is a hallmark of a functioning safety management system. So you should be applauded for that, because all of that works together. Now, I want to shift focus just a little bit in my question. You mentioned what I call the moral side of safety. We have a responsibility to those that come to work for us to ensure they have the tools, the training, the necessary systems, the necessary hazard identification, the necessary risk analysis in order to go do their job so they can go home safely. Veriforce's mission is to provide tools and services that bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. So that's the moral side of safety. But there is also a business side of safety. And as a subcontractor, I'm sure that you have accounts that you report to in third-party verification systems, right?
Yes.
So in these accounts, how devastating is it to your business to even have a single OSHA recordable injury?
Oh, it could mean having a client or not.
Mm-hmm.
Even for us, because of the size of our company, we get 2 OSHA recordables, and our total recordable incident rate goes up, and all of a sudden I'm above industry average, and on those databases it flags me, even though we have such a great safety culture, we're inclusive, and we're doing everything right. It is challenging, and it can be very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Losing a client can mean exactly what James said. You lose the client, and then maybe they take time to pay you, and then you're trying to make payroll, or you're trying to use the money to get other jobs, or to continue that cycle. So I mean, I think it's really important. So along those lines, I think a lot of people are tempted to go into these verification systems and put in some data that may not be exactly correct, because losing a job is a big deal for a subcontractor or a small firm. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but one of the things that you've mentioned is all in for safety, right? And what you're mentioning is that cycle, that safety management system, where the business aspect and the safety aspect, and it all kind of weaves together. Okay. And so how do you impress upon accounting, other than your safety meetings and your conference call, accounting, estimating, leadership, what kind of things do you talk to them about when they say, look, Shauna, I know you want 16 new ladders that are longer, and stuff for the roof and new fall protection equipment. How do you make that case to them that it's part of the cycle? We can't make money if we're not safe. We're not safe, we don't make money. Like it's kind of like this thing. How do you get that through their heads?
Oh gosh, I think I'm in a really kind of good situation with my team because of our closeness, that I'm able to, if I need something, obviously I've got to go out. I got to get my pricing. For example, I just went out and wanted to find a portable roof anchor, right? And something that is manageable that we can get up on the roof. And I went out to my vendors. I found something. I'm like, this thing looks amazing. And I asked them, I'm like, I want 6 of them. And then I got the quote, and they're like $4,000 each.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay, so 6 probably isn't going to fly.
Yeah.
But I could still make the case. I'm like, you know what? Let's get one.
Yeah.
Let's get one. It's a month out. That brings me to a whole nother issue, because of the supply chain
Yeah.
delay, right? Getting the equipment in on time when you need it next week, and it's 4 weeks out. But anyways, but I was like, I was able to make the case of like, hey, this is going to be a really good tool for us to have. We need to make sure that we pre-plan so we can get it to the job site so it's on time, and we take the time to make sure that we're getting it up there safely. We have enough people. But at the end of the day, the $3,000 or $4,000 that we're going to spend on this one piece of equipment can possibly save serious injury or fatality of one of our workers, which is going to cost a whole lot more in the end. And we're a company that is all in for safety, but we're not immune to incidents and accidents from happening. So we have seen it in the past. We have past information, past data that shows that if we had this tool, we may have been able to prevent something from happening. And I use that case going forward, that we need our people to be safe.
One of the interesting dynamics that you have is you often work as a subcontractor of a prime contractor. And one of the greatest challenges that I have, and I see across the oil and gas industry and the construction industry when dealing with subcontractors, is they're waiting for the prime contractor to tell them what to do with regards to the aspects of occupational safety and health. Then when you get to the prime contractor, they're waiting for the hiring client to tell them what to do. And I hear this all the time. Well, my hiring client, my prime contractor, did not tell me we needed a hard hat, fall protection, train our workers, conduct a job hazard analysis, determine what the risk is. Hey, make sure that we have a controlled access zones, all these things. And I think that mentality is leading to injuries and fatalities across a lot of different industries, that people don't understand there is a legal side of occupational safety and health. And you need to read your MSA. The hiring client is not going to direct your work. The hiring client is not going to come out there and do all the hazard assessments. They're going to tell you need a functioning safety management system that complies with the law and the minimum requirements of our MSA. And in that gap, in that lack of understanding, is a lot of risk. So if I'm a sub and I'm depending on my prime contractor to run my safety department for me, my prime contractor is depending on the hiring client to tell me everything that I should be doing out there and run my safety department for me. When that doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen, because you have a legal side of this where hiring clients are pushing liability to the contractor. They're saying, we're not an expert in confined space entry. We're not an expert in electrical. We're not an expert in whatever area that you're doing. That's why we hired contractors. You're the expert. So this disconnect, and I'm going to get to my question here in a second, this disconnect between what we think is happening in the contractor community and what's really happening in the contractor community has been overcome by you. You're going to have a functioning safety management system regardless of what your prime contractor says. But how did you get to that mentality? And what do you recommend to other business owners who are still looking for direction on everything from the companies that are above them?
So we, for the companies and the hiring clients that we work for, we really had to raise our bar to get up there. And, especially with programs such as Veriforce and IS Networld, entering all that information in and seeing our gaps made us realize we have some work to do. And if we want to continue to be the business that we are and work in the industries that we are, we have to get up there. So that was part of the way that we realized that, all right, even if we're small, we need to have this robust program and do the right things, check the box, but also go beyond. And that's hard where we're hiring our subs. Like, we're a mechanical contractor, but sometimes we have to hire an electrical sub. And then we kind of have to bring them up with us because now we're responsible for them.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing where the hiring client is going to be like, well, you have to manage your sub. You have to make sure that they're doing the right thing as much as you're doing the right thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You'd be simply amazed how many people don't understand that.
Well, I just had this
People
conversation.
think, I have a contract with XYZ company. I do a lot of contractor audits and assessments, right? And the confusion about what a contractor's responsibility is to the hiring client and what they should be doing when vetting, managing, controlling, verifying subcontractors is simply astounding. It simply amazes me that people think, well, I hired, we need an electrician, so I just hired this electrician. They're not looking at any of their past safety performance, their safety management system, how they go about doing their job. Hey, what are your injury statistics? And I think all of us agree that TRIR is not a perfect metric, but let's don't act like it's not a metric. It is a metric, right? And everybody uses it. So inside of that, sometimes I find contractors don't realize that they have a responsibility, a legal responsibility to their hiring client when they hire a subcontractor, that everywhere it says Fraser Engineering in the contract, you need to mirror those requirements with your subs.
Yes. And that's why, while years ago, we have to do pre-quals for our hiring clients. And then I'm like, well, if we have to go through the pre-quals, why aren't we pre-qualifying our subs? And it can get difficult because, our subs could be a 3 to 9 person shop, depending on what their trade is. But it's still the due diligence on our end to make sure that they do have the right insurance, that they do have the right training. And if they don't, I'll step in and be like, if you're going to be working for us on this job and you don't have your permit required confined space, and I've done this before for a subcontractor, I train them.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here, and then Dr. Martin looks like she's got a question for you, but I want to give you a story real quick of a real life client. I will omit the names. So we work with a oil and gas operator and a contractor that was involved in this instance. So the contractor hired a subcontractor to bring a vacuum truck and pressure wash and clean out this tank, right? So the contractor then hires a subcontractor to perform this work. This is a 3-person company, right? The hiring client doesn't know that this subcontractor is on the job. The contractor did not have any type of pre-qualification or verification process. They just hired this guy. Well, this guy goes out, picks up a worker at the truck stop, buys this worker a slicker suit, a rain suit to protect him from the water, goes out, and they're cleaning out this particular tank. And they're using what was basically the equivalent of a garden hose. And they had too much PSI from this truck on this garden hose, and it came apart. The water scalded, burnt through the slicker suit, and gave 3rd-degree burns to the worker that was out there. That worker had to get in a helicopter and be flown to a burn center. for reconstructive surgery. Okay. So obviously, we're going to have OSHA that's going to get involved in this, right? When we start doing the investigation, guess what? This subcontractor did not have workers' comp.
Oh my gosh.
So we have an employee out there that's got almost $200,000 worth of legal bills who is going to be disfigured for life. And the hiring client had no idea this customer was, this contractor was on their site. So what does this result in? Litigation for everybody. Okay? The worker needs to be made whole and taken care of. Normally that's handled through workers' comp. Well, workers' comp, there is no workers' comp. So who gets sued? The subcontractor, the contractor, and the hiring client that didn't even know this guy was out there. So what's the chances that contractor keeps that contract, you think, Sean?
Oh, very little. Very little.
So
You know,
I'm gonna jump
if I
in
get
and
my
say,
customer sued, I'm probably not going to keep that customer.
No.
I'll jump in here. I forgot my question, but I will say this, because I know Shauna has projects in and around the Boston area. When I was managing projects in Boston, I was sitting on one of my projects waiting for a sub to show up. This is when I was doing field work, and it's near a particular Home Depot. And what would happen in the morning around 6, 7 a.m., because I got there early, I live far away, so you have to drive in Boston. There would be a gathering of folks on the sidewalk at a certain area, and vans would show up, and you'd hear the guy yell 2 or 3, and they would clamber into this van and take off, right? So these are not even, I'm guessing this was a situation where people needed day workers, right? And they were just taking advantage of populations in Boston that just wanted cash, right? And so the liability there is huge, because what you're describing, James, I mean, maybe they were employee, maybe not, but the litigation and the liability is ginormous. And I know it happens because I've seen it, right?
The subcontractor in this had this form that they filled out, and they made an independent contractor, and it wasn't what their paper had written on. But why? Because you're directing the work, right? And so that blurred line of who's responsible, withholding, 1099 is about taxes. OSHA is about who's directing the work. And there was no doubt that the sub was directing the work. So therefore, he is an employee regardless of his tax status. Right? And people don't understand that. So
Temp workers, when you hire temp workers.
Absolutely, same situation. You use a temporary agency when they come and direct work, they get hurt. It doesn't go on the temp agency's 300 log, it goes on your 300 log. And I've had this conversation with many business owners, and you probably have as well, Sean. Look, what you're asking me to do is give you a plan to hide OSHA report language when you should be asking, why do I keep getting young people hurt?
Right. And it's a lie, and those are like going back to what Dr. Martin said earlier, on these databases, if you find the numbers, it's not going to help anybody. You have to be able to see your trends. You have to be able to see your gaps in order to close those and make yourself better, so that people simply don't get hurt, and you end up with more customer retention, because your customers don't want to hire a contractor who's lying about their safety, because it's going to show up.
You're going to get caught. Remember, these incidents mostly happen on a client site. So if you send them the 300 law and self-report and say there's no OSHA reportables, but your client who submitted it is the investigation to understand exactly what happened, you're going to have to explain why did your 300 law look different than our memory? I've got it in the investigation work here, they're going to get caught. And then when we can't trust the information, you're done. So when I speak to business owners, I get your reaction to this. What I'm selling to say is insurance. You would not let your worker drive down the road and company-owned vehicles that didn't have insurance. So why do you let them go to work every day without a functioning safety management system? Because then your business is built in on hope. I hope. Let's set the moral aside. I hope nothing happens tonight on my night shift and someone gets seriously injured or killed, because if they do, my business I've worked for 30 years is going to go away. So don't care about the workers from a moral standpoint. Care about the business from a business standpoint. Safety is good business, and you're not going to survive very long in these high-hazard businesses that you and I work in, and Dr. Martin works in, if you not have a functioning safety management system.
No, you're not. I would simply not. It is. It's a business, moral business aspect too. We've been around for 73 years now. And we wouldn't have made it this far without we've definitely had our lessons learned over the years. It's been 1950 to 2023, but especially now, with manpower shortages, supply chain issues, it's more important now for the business aspect, and risk and liability to keep our people safe, do the right thing. And like I said, we wouldn't send our guys out into a vehicle that didn't have insurance. We should put insurance on our guys by training them, give them the right tools and equipment. Let them know that they have a voice, that they can come back and say, hey, there's a safety issue. I need some advice. Even if it's a simple question.
So I gotta wrap up here. I know we're getting kind of to time. People get bored with us after about 45 minutes or so. But I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Backdraft. It's really old, right? And this is by some of what I've seen from Fraser Engineering and from your family business. And that's not lip service, right? And the famous line from that movie is, "You go, we all go." Right? And that is what ownership coupled with safety and other aspects of the business, and that cycle it is. You go, we all go. And I know, just from knowing you and CJ and your mom and your you talking about your management team, that is true. That is true. So kudos to you for all that you do.
Can I add in a quick story?
Sure. Yes.
It ties perfectly into the liability and risk, and it's something that it's hit home with me recently. I've just been doing our fire prevention and fire extinguisher training, and I always take examples from history, whether it's a Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, or Station Nightclub Fire. But I was editing my PowerPoint in my office, and I looked at a picture behind me, and it was of a textile manufacturing plant in Massachusetts that we had worked at. This is back in the 90s, and I was like, I gotta put that one in there. And the reason why is because I remember as a child, because it was in the 90s, so I was still like high schoolish, and on the news, this plant was on fire. And
they made polar fleece.
You know probably which one I'm referring to.
I was here. I'm a little older than you, but yes, I was here.
And my father was screaming and cursing at the TV as the news coverage is, showing all this. And I didn't understand why at that time, and how important it was. But the reason he was so upset was because we were there the day before and fired up one of the burners. And it turns out that after the whole entire place had burned down, the one building, the one part of the building that wasn't touched was the one part that we had touched and we fired up. So we had no responsibility to the fire that happened, but it was in that split second that my father was in that panic mode of, oh my gosh, we just destroyed a manufacturing plant. And I understand that ownership now, where that risk and that liability, one wrong decision can take everything away, whether it's a person or the business.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to add a little bit to that story. I might be wrong about this. It might be a different fire, but that fire, there was an owner, right? And I can't remember the number of employees, but there were several employees that were out of work because it burned to the ground. And that owner, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be speaking out of turn, took care of the employees.
Correct.
They got paid. They got
Yes.
paid even after the plant burned. And so that is ownership, right? Regardless of what happened or how it happened or whatever, when the employees were displaced from their jobs, he treated them with respect and knew that he had the money to help them either transition or wait until that plant was rebuilt. Because I think he might have rebuilt it.
I believe so, because the picture that I referred to was after the fire when we went back and helped out with their cogeneration plant.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great story. That's a great example. And it hits home. I think it was in Lowell or one of those places where there's a lot of industrial facilities. So, Shauna, thank you so much for coming on this show. I mean, I think you, like James said, you share a lot of the same things that James sees every day as an owner and a safety professional. And that whole cycle of everything is connected. It's organizational and it's safety. But it's organizational, because if the organizational culture isn't there, people aren't involved, people don't understand. You can't infuse that safety into the organization. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to let James take us out.
Thank you, Shauna, for coming and being a guest. Thank you to all of our listeners that listen in on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Go down there, smash that subscribe button, get those alerts to let you know when we've got a new episode that is broadcast. Typically, these posts on Tuesday afternoon Central Time. Go over there, get down in the comments, tell us what you think, follow us, share the show. We hope you enjoy it. We hope it's adding value. Until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe.